Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and today's guest and I have a couple of things in common. One, we love talking about mindset, the conscious and the subconscious, but also we've both lived on a boat before. His was, well, technically, I lived on a ship. There is a difference. I got counseled on that on the ship for calling it a boat by mistake. But we both have been on aquatic vehicles for a little bit there, and I think his was a little nicer, a little more private than a U.S. Aircraft carrier, and he's going to tell us all about that and how that led him to his eventual journey in doing mind clearing, which we're going to talk about today. But Dr. Alain Salas, great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I didn't know, I had no clue that you were a sailor too. So that's great. The ocean is amazing. It's like make you feel. I never felt so much freedom while sailing, actually, really.
Yeah, so can you tell us about that? I know you used to live on your sailing boat and rent boats in the south of France, and so you were born and raised in France. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, so I used to live on a sailing boat and I used to rent boats, matter of fact. And so, I think that freedom, I was all about freedom. And for me, freedom was adventure, right? And so, of course, a boat, it's the symbol of freedom because, my dad was kind of a controlling person, right?
Mm,
And he could be like hard, on me and things like that. So, of course, I wanted freedom, right? And I thought the
right.
freedom was outside, right? And so that's the reason why I think subconsciously, I got the boat, right? And so what happened, I did that 6 or 7 years. So I had a pretty good life, right? I mean, I was like working 6, 7 months a year. I was single, partying a lot, right? And the rest of the time I was traveling. I was a sun chaser, right? So when I was
Mm,
done with the south of France sun, when I will go to the south hemisphere sun, right? And so I never, for 7 years, I didn't know what snow was about, right? Anyway, so I really enjoyed my time, but again, something was missing, right? And I had a calling, and I saw myself helping people. And I don't know, but when you got a calling, right? You just cannot say no, right? I mean, God give you basically your
yeah.
mission in life, right? So you cannot. I mean, there's no doubt, right? The only things I didn't know how to proceed, right? I knew it will be like alternative medicine, right? I didn't know. So I started to talk to my clients, right? And one of them said, you know what? There's a Chinese doctor that is coming to visit me for like a week. Maybe you should meet him and talk. I said, oh yeah, sure enough. So I was
Yeah.
excited to meet him, right? And we started to talk, and he gave me 3 books to read, right? And he said, after when you're done with the summer season, you come to see me. I will give you a treatment, and we'll talk. So he gave me that book. One book was called the Hara, Hara, and it means Bailey in Japanese. That's why the Japanese people traditionally they will kill themselves with a knife at their core, at their center of gravity, that they call that the Hara, right? And so, and after another book was like the man between the sky and the earth, was more like about acupuncture, if you want. And another book was called The Tao Te Ching, right, which is like an old text, old Chinese wisdom text. So I read all those books, and sure enough, after the season was over, I went to see him, and we start talking, and ask him about Chinese medicine, right? And so, well, he said, if you really want to know what you're doing, you need to go to China, learn Chinese, and all that. I was 30 years old at that time. I said, man, I want to practice one day, right?
Right, right.
So I just told him, hold on, I think it's a little bit of a stretch for me, right? Because I'm impatient to help people, right? And so
Mm,
he said, oh, you know what? You look strong, Alan. Why not chiropractic? I said, what's that? Because you have to understand in my family or any people that I knew, nobody was in the healthcare system or healing system, right? I'm not even a massage therapist, nothing. So I said, okay, well, he gave me all the information. And so it was a college in South Carolina. It was called Sherman. And so they sent me the information. And what was really intriguing to me, Mr. Whiskey, was about the innate intelligence. your
Mm.
own ability to heal yourself. And that was fascinating for me. And that really resonated with me, right? So I said, okay, let's do chiropractic. So I got my first treatment in America. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. So imagine I used to have long hair, hearing. They used to call me the gypsy. And here I am. I saw my parent and I said, oh, by the way, I'm going to sell everything, right? My boat business, and I'm going to become a doctor in America. So they smile, they laugh like you're doing, right? They
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
what? Okay, it's another thing, right? They didn't know. I didn't tell them about what I felt, my mission and all that.
Right, right.
And so, sure enough, I went, and well, I'm not going to lie, at the beginning, it was not easy because my English, you have to understand that the information that I got from the college, I had to have them translate by one of my friends that was an English teacher. That's how good my English was.
Wow.
Anyway, so I went there, and I became a chiropractor, to make a long story short, right? And I met my wife, actually, my ex-wife, should I say now, and she was from France. We met in a bar, and we have a wonderful daughter. Her name is Maya, and she's now 20 years old, right? And so after graduation, I started to practice what I've been taught in school, but I felt that I was expecting more, Mr. Whiskey, right? I was expecting more, like
Yeah.
to get better result. I just wanted to help people deeper, right? Because you help people, you help them physically if you want, and after you reach a plateau, and after people have to come to see you just to maintain that plateau. I say that's not right, because there's
Yeah.
one thing I've learned in life, Mr. Whiskey, is this: to resolve any problem in your life, right? That can be a health problem, that can be a relationship problem, that can be a prosperity problem. Whatever problem in your life, you need to know two things. Number one, what's causing your problem. Number two, how to fix it. Because if you don't know what's causing a problem, how can you fix it? I mean, this is it, right? And the how to fix it is very important, because if I tell you, okay, Mr. Whiskey, that's what's wrong with your health, and we can help, you will have more energy, and blah, 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 right? But if you tell me, okay, what are we going to do? I say, oh, well, I'm not sure.
Right.
That's going to work. That's not going to work well, right?
Right.
And so that was very important. And so I started to think about, okay, maybe I can help people a little bit differently, and maybe we can figure it out what kind of inflammation they've got in the body, which is more of a chemical stress, right? And helping them changing their diet, finding out if they do have food sensitivity, I'm sorry, and things like that, right? So I use a technique, it's called muscle testing. So you don't have to spend money on a blood test and all that. And the body is telling you, when you can read the body, it's telling you what's wrong, right? So I did that, and become very good at it. And I had like a big practice, like seeing 250 patients a week, right? Having 4 employees, and um, and I was, I think I was doing the right thing, right? Because I was leaving my patient and helping, lots of people. Here's the thing, right? I burned out, right? It was too much. I was overworked and all that. And when I was going home, to my wife, I was like, I was there, but I was not present. Right. And
Yeah.
so you see what I mean? So my relationship
Yeah.
started to go down the drain. And so it just messed up with my head. Right. And so I started to feel depressed, and basically, um, I lost my clarity. I lost a part of my passion. Right. And so when you're depressed, you don't want to do anything. Right. And so, of course, within a year, here's what happened to me. I got divorced, right? And I live in my office for, like, I said, oh, it's going to be only 3 months, right? Just because I have to pay, for my wife expenses, for my daughter and all that. I want to save money. 3 years later, I was still in my office living there. I mean, don't
Wow.
get me wrong, it was a nice office, right? There
Yeah,
was
yeah.
8 treatment room and all that, but still. And so that was a little bit funny in a way, because they used to call me the gypsy, right? So it was fitting, I guess. And after my practice, because I couldn't focus and my clarity was so bad, that went from thriving to failing, right? All my employees were gone. I was like basically solo, right? In that big office living there. And after the cherry on the cake, I got diagnosed with early stage of colon cancer. And this was like, imagine, you this is your job. You recommend people how to avoid that, right? Basically,
Yeah,
how to
yeah,
avoid the second killer in this country, and you do your program diligently, and you got sick. So I have to reinvent myself totally, rethink everything that I knew about life, what I knew about relationship, obviously, and prosperity. And I went on a quest, Mr. Whiskey, and just wanted to find out, okay, what are the forces behind it that push me to sabotage, myself at
yeah.
the health level and my relationship and prosperity.
Yeah, you touched upon an important thing, which is the problem and then the solution. But a lot of times we add this thing in between them called the symptoms, which we misdiagnose as the problems, and we find the solutions for the symptoms or, a temporary relief and not the problem. That's something we see a lot with big pharmaceutical companies that they push symptom relief, not problem solving. And we've covered that on the show quite a bit. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. And then also, yeah, you talk about, when you have a calling in life, it seems like, how am I ever going to do this? But everything somehow lines up, and I'm a man of God, so I credit God. But like, what are the chances that you knew someone who had this doctor from China come in to visit that, I mean, if you had never met him, who knows if you would have been able to go on your mission? But it's almost like it was, a miracle. Like, here comes this guy who sets you up on your path of life. I've had it a lot of times in my life where I said, "Me, a podcaster? What do you mean?" And there's many times where I thought I was going to quit or that I wouldn't be able to move forward because of finances or certain opportunities or scheduling, and then all this stuff lined up where it happened. So I think when you have a calling in life, like you said, you feel it, and it's hard nowadays with between your family, your friends, and then all the people online telling you what your calling is instead of you feeling it, you're hearing other people tell you what it is. I think a lot of people are getting confused with what their purpose in life is, and it's not many people who would just sell all the boats they have and go off to another country where they don't speak the language, try to learn all of this. And so it's definitely a very interesting life that you lived and you talk about you know, not disconnecting from work. That's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially nowadays. A lot of people take work home with them on their phones, on their laptop. But even people like you, for say, who see clients, you come home and you're thinking about, that client's issues or tomorrow's clients or anything
Exactly.
but your then wife. So I totally get that. Or how can I grow my business? How can I see more people? How can I treat people better? You just have that perpetual cycle running through your head. So let's talk about you went on a journey, after the divorce and the diagnosis of colon cancer. You said you really had to see what was driving all of this. So what did you find was driving all of this?
All right. So what I did, remember, we need to find, what's causing the problem and how to fix it, right? And so, well, for the physical aspect, because I realized that I was treating only one aspect of a human being, right? Which
Mm,
is the chemical. And so we are physical human being. We are chemical, meaning our internal chemistry and what we eat and all that. But also we are mental and emotional human being, right? So I was treating only one part. So I realize now I need to treat the person as a whole, right? Otherwise, I'm not going to get the result for myself and although for others, because I always knew, you see, I've never been on a victim mode, right? The victim
mm,
mode, my dad showed me what was the victim mode. He showed me what not to do. In a way, because he was so negative and all that, he got sick and he got disabled at 40 years old and he was killing him, right? You
that's a
see what I
shame.
mean? Yeah, it's a shame. And so I learned from him. I said, oh, I don't want, because when you're in victim mode and you sick for a long time, what happened? People will call you and say, "How you doing?" Meaning, how you doing relating to your disease, not you as an individual in a way. So after
Mm,
you identify with a disease and what do subconsciously what you identified, oh, if I'm sick, right? Of course, they don't think that consciously, right? I don't want to say that. But if I'm sick, I'm getting the attention, I'm getting the love.
It's true. Very true.
That's it. And after, if you are you caught up on that victim mode, and you never got out of it. I mean, he died, at 80 years old actually, but he died, and but all that suffering with anxiety and negativity and all that. But when you're negative, it's mostly directed toward yourself. You
That's
can it can
true.
impact other people, don't get me wrong, but the one who suffers the most is that person. So I understood all that because I saw that, in my life when I was a kid. And so I say, okay, it's not going to be like that. I need just to find out what's causing, and the only person responsible is me, right? I mean, I have to fix myself. I'm not going to blame my ex-wife. I'm not going to blame outside circumstances. I just need to look within, right? And figure it out. So I always had that drive, that faith that I will get better, right? Because I knew, and what was really helping also, Mr. Whiskey, is like, it was not only about me, it was about helping those people that trust
Right.
me, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see what I mean? So that was helpful for me to get motivation, right? Yeah, and such. And so what I did for the physical part, I decided, okay, I'm going to do it all. We're going to treat physical, chemical, and emotional and mental, right? So the physical part, I found out that as a chiropractor, we treat only 20% of the nervous system, which are the nerves that exiting your spine and go everywhere in your body. It's only 20%. So what if we can impact over 80% of your nervous system, which is the central nervous system? So I became a cranial specialist, right? So I was be able to help other people. And I'm very, how can I say, creative in a way, right? I got insight, coming to me out of the blue. And I started to create my own, what we call energy technique, right? And things like that. So just to make sure that everything is moving right, in the body. So I created that. So I said, okay, we're pretty good on that, right? So for the chemical stress, I already, knew what's causing the problem and how to fix it. I found out, you know what? If we supercharge the body with oxygen and not doing an alkaline diet that is very expensive and nobody's going to follow, right? Long
Right.
term, well, I created some mixture that are still dirt cheap, right? And that can help the people and raise the pH. That will kill everything, all the bugs,
Hmm.
all infectious agents, and that will detoxify you in the same time. And I had
Wow.
great results doing that. So, okay, that's number two, right? Which I apply to heal my cancer, by the way, right? And after, we used to say that cancer cell, when they see oxygen, it's like a vampire seeing the sun. They don't
Okay.
like it.
That's
And
interesting.
after I've started to see, oh, okay, you know what? Now, what's about the emotion and the mental aspect? So, of course, we are mind and body, right? And so I started to learn some different technique for the emotion and all that. But soon, what I discover, it's like it was good, but again, I knew intuitively there was something better. Let's put it that way. So I started to get insight treating patient, and 3 years later, next thing you know, the mind clearing was born, right? And so, of course, I was able to naturally heal from the cancer, right? I was also able to double my income because I didn't have that overhead. And what I was doing was very attractive to people because it was really a holistic approach, right? And I got the result. And from for the relationship point of view, I got remarried. Now I've got 8 years old. So I had totally a different, another family. It's like I feel, Mr. Whiskey, that, like what they say about the phoenix, right? They're reborn from the ashes.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
know.
that's really what happened to me at so many
Mhm.
different levels, right? And so when I started to study the mind, right? Because the mind is so important. And what I discovered, and what you can check on Google, actually, it's not really something, a secret. I discovered that we live in two separate worlds at the same time.
Yeah.
So, what do I mean by that? You've got what we call the inner world and the outer world. So, the outer world, for example, is your who you think you are, right? It's your personality, right? It's your self identity, right? It's how you perceive the world around you. It's what you think you can do or cannot do, right? And so that's called your conscious mind, right? That's your outer world. And the inner world, it's called the unconscious or the subconscious mind. And this is full of mystery in a way because you're not aware of what's going on, right? And so what the subconscious role is, there's different things, but all your skills as a human being are stored there, right? Also, all the automatic things that happen in your body, like your heartbeat, like your breathing, are stored there, right? And more importantly, Mr. Whiskey, from your age 0 to now, everything is stored, it's recorded in that subconscious mind. Everything you have been doing. So to give you an idea of the subconscious mind is how powerful it is, Mr. Whiskey. It's like the conscious mind will process data at 11 bits per second. The subconscious mind will process data at 11 million bits per second.
Wow. Wow.
That's crazy, right? And
Yeah,
so,
that's
and on top of that, when you, and again, go to the Google, right, and do it. And so, on top of that, when you know the ratio, imagine a circle, and a part is the conscious mind, and the other part is the subconscious mind. Well, the subconscious mind depends who you are reading, is only 5 to 10% of your mind. And the
hmm.
subconscious mind, therefore, is 90 to 95% of our mind, meaning that we focus only on a conscious mind to heal, to transform ourselves, to grow, to heal from trauma, and all that. So, meaning that we use only 5 to 10% of our mind and brain power. So, I was thinking, what if we can use 95% more of our mind and brain
Yeah.
power? What if we can bring the subconscious mind to the party, right? And so that's what happened with the mind clearing.
You touched upon a subject we've discussed before with the undoctor Fred Moss. He and I had a great conversation about what you call the victim mode. We talked specifically about young women from, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and whatever the new generation is. I think it's Gen Beta. You know, these young women going online and purposefully, whether they got it diagnosed and they don't have it, whether they have it and they're flaunting it, to get attention, as you said. Look at me, I have depression. Look at me, I have anxiety. Look at me, I have Tourette's. We see a lot of young women online doing that. And some young men too. It's more women, but some young men as well. You know, going out there and purposefully trying to get diagnosed with ADHD and, not just for attention, but for an excuse to be lazy, to be pitied, to not have to work as hard at whether it's school or a job, to try and leech off of people. And the biggest shame to me about it is that it stops people who are actually victims from getting the help they need because it's either we treat everyone like a victim or no one. And we're kind of having to help those people get away with their victim mode when they're not. Or when, and there are people who are victims, but they have exaggerated it or have dragged it out for so long or choose not to get help on purpose for the sole benefit of, reaping those rewards of getting that attention, of getting whatever it is, whether it's online or in person. And like you said, it almost becomes their identity. You talked about, people are calling you saying, hey, how's the fight against your depression? Or you feeling anxious today? Like you mentioned, it's becoming their identity, and they take some kind of pride in it. They want to make it even more severe. The worse their depression is, the more attention they'll get. And it's such an awful cycle that we have going on in this world. And unfortunately, people are feeding into it every day. As you and I are talking right now, hundreds of people online are talking about how they're so depressed or so anxious. And now 100 more people just talked about it in the time I said that. So I think you talk about being in this victim mode. Some of them it is subconscious and some of them it's conscious, and it's
Exactly.
shame. And there's even people making money off of it. There are young women posting on, kind of almost pornographic content, and the attraction to it is, look, I'm a depressed girl and I'm naked, or I have Tourette's when I'm naked, and it's such a shame that people are paying for that and that people are making that their lifestyle. And I just it's sickening. And I really like what you mentioned about the people are making it their identity, and we see it in the reverse too. I forget the name of it. I don't want to say the wrong name, but it's a certain, I guess you could call it mentality where mothers and even fathers, but mostly we see in mothers, will actually keep their kids sick on purpose to continually have to take care of them. Or even in a relationship, you might see a woman or a man keep their partner sick to have to take care of them and keep them in that position of victimhood. So,
But like you said, ultimately, those are more symptoms, right? See what I mean? Like even if they do it on purpose, what pushing them to do that on purpose? There's a
right,
trauma somewhere. There's a limiting belief. We're going to talk about that. And that's somewhere that pushing that because they think they just they don't deserve maybe happiness. So whatever it is, who cares? It's not. It can.
right.
We're not here to analyze, right? But it just there's something there behind the scene that push them to do that. Even they do that consciously, which is more like an excuse in a way, right?
Yeah,
That's what you were saying, right? But why do they need to have an excuse? What they don't why they don't take their responsibility, right? And so of course it's maybe the way they were raised, it's possible, but there's maybe more than that behind the scene that is acting. And so just to give you an idea what's going on, it's like what happened, we can be programmed. So yes, our mind can be programmed, or you better believe it. And so usually it's from like more like from age zero, it can be in utero, right? From age zero to they say 6 or 8 years old that you are the most susceptible to be programmed, right? And so why?
mm,
Because we're like sponges, right? So the conscious mind doesn't have too many filters. So what we see in the outside world, remember we talk about the outer world, right? So what
right,
we see in the outside world, we as a kid, because we are so innocent, we think it's truth, right? And so it become an assumption. And if you see that enough, it's become a program with repetition and repetition. And so you do have good program and bad program. Should I say you've got programs that are serving you and programs that are not serving you? And the program
mm,
who are serving you, we call that empowering belief. Empowering belief. And program who are not serving you any longer are limiting belief. So let me give you an example because I think it makes more sense if you allowed me. It makes more sense for the audience, right? And so let's pretend there's a little girl that see her dad, but in an alcoholic
mm-hmm.
addiction, right? He's an alcoholic, come back every night and beat up the mom. What do you think that little girl's gonna attract as a romantic relationship down the road?
Pretty much the same thing because to her, that's normal, that's comfortable, that's what a relationship is.
But if you ask her, so there's 2 points here that are very interesting, I think. So number one, if you ask her, so if you ask the conscious mind, and
Mm.
you say, "Do you enjoy to get beat up by your man?" She's gonna say, "Heck no."
Right, right,
So the conscious mind is gonna say no, but the subconscious mind has been programmed as men are predator and women are prey. So now the other question that comes up, how she's going to attract that man? She's not going to go and say, shake the hand and say, hey, I'm ready to get beat up, right? Do you want to party with
right,
me? Do you want to dance with me?
right, right,
So obviously, it's not going to happen that way. So it's like kind of like our subconscious mind are connected. And the subconscious mind is going to make her be attracted to that guy, right? She's going to fall in love. She doesn't even know why, but maybe the guy used to be bullied and now he's a bully, right? And so perfect match, right? They are ready to tango together, right? So it's like, it's not like it's not her fault, what I'm trying to say,
right,
right? It's just programs that have been there and that's why she's going to attract. So our past, right, affect our present and mold our future. So all our past, meaning the limiting belief, trauma that we have, is going to impact us all the time until we can remove them or until we learn from life experiences. Because there's three case scenario, Mr. Whiskey, for that woman now, right? So number one, she get married to that guy and gets stuck with an abusive relationship for the rest of her life. I'm sure we know, everybody knows a
Yeah.
relationship like, unfortunately. And so case number two, what may happen, it's like she's gonna be with that guy, and after she's gonna separate too much, and maybe have another guy, maybe have, kids along the way. And Mr. Whiskey, usually the majority of the women, what they are telling me, I'm done with men. I don't want any men
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
They are not good for me,
I've
right?
heard
They're
that
not
before.
good for
Yeah.
me. You see what I mean? And so, but if they heal, because you can learn from your life experiences and heal from it, obviously, right? But look at all the suffering it takes, right? And so, if she heals, she will attract somebody totally different, somebody that is kind to her, somebody that is nurturing to her, somebody that respects her, but somebody that see her as an equal, right? You see what I mean? So that's how
Yeah.
you know when you see in your life, in your screen of life, if you want, when you see that, um, you know that you have healed. Because you can see, I can give you an analogy with a computer and the mind, because people, they're into computer in those days, right?
Yeah.
So imagine the brain is the hard drive. It's just only an interface. That's it. The brain is your hard drive, and your software is the subconscious mind. And the output of a software is your conscious mind. And the screen of life is your behavior. So follow me here. If you got a good software that is
Right.
helping you, right?
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? You're going to love your screen of life, right? You're going to love
Mhm.
your life, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got a software that is full of limiting belief and negativity, well, your life is going to be not as pleasant, to say the least, right? So, what if we can go there and change this program? And that's what the mind clearing is about.
Yeah. Yeah. I like you said, there could be 100 different reasons that drive someone, whether it's like you said, what they saw from their parents, whether it's a influence of social media that they absorbed, especially with you talk about the ages 0 to 6 or 8, and now we have toddlers on iPads and iPhones and having access to the internet, and even with parental locks and restrictions, they're still accessing a different world of knowledge than when you and I grew up, and it's so interesting to see that during that time, like you said, where they're a sponge. And we talked before about neuroplasticity on the show. So talk
Yes.
about we have these subconscious programs from, what we've seen, what we've been through, what we've experienced, and then you talk about mind clearing as a way to change that. So let's get into mind clearing, what it is, how
Sure.
it works, and how people can do it or, have it done to them.
Sure. Yeah, so that's a good point. Just I want to add, okay, obviously that when you change your subconscious mind, it will rewire your brain, right? Because it will be different connection that we call simply neuroplasticity, right? When I graduate from school, they say, oh, those nerves cannot change, right? I mean, you've got a certain amount of nerves, and if you drink alcohol, you will kill them, and they can never regenerate. We know now it's totally untrue, right? But also it will affect at the DNA level, right? So according to Bruce Lipton, and what we call epigenetic, right? That's the study how your environment impact your DNA, right? So it will be changed there too. So that's how physically it will impact your body. I just wanted to add that a little bit. So,
Yeah, that's
so
interesting.
yeah. So the mind clearing, basically what you want, it's like you've got a computer, you've got a program, it doesn't work for you anymore. So what are you going to do, right? You're just going to delete what you don't want. So you're going to delete your limiting belief, right? And after you're going to replace them, you're going to download empowering ones, right? So what you want. So get rid of what you don't want. You download what you want, and after remember you want to manifest that into the world. So you want to create, make sure that you're going to take some step, and so reprogramming too. You're going to get some step to show that, oh yeah, it's different now, because now by taking action, and so I change my behavior, and by taking action, it's like, imagine there's a triangle here, right? At the
Mhm.
center of a triangle, you've got limiting belief. On top of a triangle, you've got therefore negative thought, right? It's limiting beliefs, not positive. And after, you're going to have overwhelming emotion on the right side of a triangle on the base. And on the left side, because you've got overwhelming emotion, you're going to have undesirable behavior and unproductive action. So let me give you an example like that. If my dad told me you are a loser, so my limiting belief is I'm a loser. I'm going to think I'm a loser. I'm going to feel like a loser. I'm going to behave like a loser. And my outcome, I say, oh yeah, I knew it. I've been told all my life. I know I'm a loser. So that's going to reinforce the feeling that I'm a loser. That thought that I'm a loser is going to get even deeper. And that's going to reinforce my limiting belief. And I call that a subconscious stress loop. And you've got all those loop, all those program running behind the scene and dictating your present and molding your future. See what I mean? So
Right.
there's another way that I want to talk because I know you talk about trauma on that show, and I think you will appreciate that. So let's pretend I'm a military guy, right? I'm going to
Right.
Iraq, I pull the trigger, and by mistake I kill my best friend. You see what I mean? Not
Right.
good. So I come back home, right? Come back in America, and I'm diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder or syndrome, right? And so what happened is like I feel so shame and guilt and all that. So imagine those emotion, right? It's
Right.
kind of like this Rambo movie, right? Remember when
Yeah. Yeah.
he had a nightmare, he wake up, he's got night sweat, and he's thinking about in the past, right? He's thinking like he's living it almost through the dream, right, or the nightmare. He's
Right.
living it and say like the Viet Cong, right, are just torturing him and all that stuff, right? So why it's happening? Because there's still a part of his soul that is pulling that trigger, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why the trauma is still there. So what about if we bring that part of the soul that is stuck in the past, right? The trauma is gone. It doesn't affect you anymore. You see, so that's why it goes so much faster with the subconscious mind. Because the program, all those program, all that memory of trauma will be there, but not impacting emotionally, right? Because of the reprogramming. Does it make sense to you? I call that the past you. All the trauma, all our problems are in the past.
Yeah.
That's where they are. They are in the past, right? And again, affect your present and shape your future, right? So if we can neutralize the past, that limiting belief that has been created by that trauma, right? And download with an empowering one. I mean, accident happen. I did. My intention was not to kill my best friend, obviously, right? But you see the problem. We try to fix a problem that is in the subconscious mind using our analytical mind, which is only 5 or 10% of your mind. So how successful you're gonna be?
Right.
Right? You see, that's the problem. You can talk about that. You can do a talk therapy, but that's potentially helping only 5 or 10% of your being. What if we can have a subconscious mind joining the party, right? Of course, it's going to be faster. And it works also for pain. You can go on my website, themindclearing.com, and you will see testimonial of people having pain. And in 2 treatments, it's gone, right? And it doesn't matter if you have pain for 10 years. So I know it sounds crazy what I'm saying, right? You mean I do a reprogramming and my pain goes away? Yes, because the cause of your problem was that programming. And so how can we do that? Well, remember the step number one, we get rid of what we don't want. So here's the thing, Mr. Whiskey. Our subconscious mind process things with picture. Why? When you dream, it's coming from your subconscious mind, right? So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
dream is coming from your subconscious mind. What do you remember from a dream? There's always a picture, or a series of picture, or a movie,
Yeah.
right? I never heard somebody tell me, "Oh, what I remember of a dream, it's only the smell." There's always a picture associated with a dream, right? And so a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Because there's all the symbolism. That's why you can see there's book that explain dream interpretation, right? That explain, how to, oh, this symbolism mean this and that, and you can take action or whatever, right? And it's psychology actually. And the problem with psychology, it's like you need to be able to tap into your subconscious mind. So psychology is the study of the mind, not only the conscious mind, right? It's the entire mind. And Carl Jung, I mean, which very famous, knew about that, right? And was very creative about it, right? And so what we want to do, I will tell that person that I killed that his best friend, I will say, okay, you know what? What you're going to do, you're going to visualize this happening. And he knows, trust me, it's going to be in his mind, it's going to be easy,
Yeah.
right? So what we're going to do, we're going to visualize that picture. That's going to be the limiting belief. Because, Mr. Whiskey, we don't need to figure out what is the limiting belief. Because we're not going to use an analytical mind to figure out something that is so much more powerful, right? And we're
Right.
not going to communicate with the same language. See, that's the problem. We're not going to communicate with the same language. So you visualize that negative picture and we customize a delete programming. It's very simple. It sounds more complicated than it is, trust me. And after, I will say now visualize totally the opposite of that picture and make sure it's a picture that you love, what you want, the outcome instead that you want. And so that's going to be what? The empowering belief. And we customize download the program. But you know who's doing the download? You know who's doing the visualization? The person. And that's why I love, because I'm just here to guide them, to have them, okay, this is how you talk to the subconscious mind, right? To the subconscious, to the same language, right? That's how we do that. And so that person, after it's very empowering because she's tapping or he's tapping into a subconscious mind. She doesn't have to believe me that, oh, there's this negative emotion in power doing this to you. No, she's and he healing herself. And you remember, it's important to me, the innate intelligence. Remember, that's why I pick up chiropractic to start with, right? And finally, the circle is like closed, right? Finally, found something that people can use for themselves and their loved ones. Imagine you can help a cousin. Imagine you can, I don't know if you're married, but if you had kids, you can help them,
Right.
right? And not going after the symptom, like you said, because that's why the medicine right now is very good for emergency room. If I break a bone, hey, and the bone is totally out of place, I want the surgery, I want the painkillers, and I want the good surgeon and the anesthesia. No doubt about that, right?
Yeah.
But for long-term pain and stress, they are the third leading causes of death in this country,
Mm.
according to the AMA, American Medical Association. So it's not working. Why? Because like you said, they don't find what's causing the problem, so they cannot fix it. They just can do patchwork. It's good money for the pharmaceutical industry, of course, but more than that, they cannot fix you. Meaning, when you heal, you find out what's causing your problem. You fix it. You're done. You move on. You don't have to take any supplement, and all that. You're done. You move on. And that's what the mind clearing is about. So some people ask me, I remember I was on a podcast and she was an hypnotherapist and say, how do you explain that this come back? I say, with the mind clearing, it doesn't come back, right? For example, the pain. How come it comes back? I say, you've got more resistance happening. So for example, somebody's got neck pain, we treat after she's good, right? But she's going to step in a car and boom, the pain. She's going to be maybe on a computer and boom, the pain's coming back, right? So guess what we're going to do? We're going to treat that as a resistance. So I'm going to ask her, visualize on a computer and you've got the neck pain. We reprogram, we delete that, visualize on your computer, and or whatever it is, a picture, because that's not my business, right? And so visualize that and we treat that and the pain is gone. Isn't it amazing how powerful we are?
Yeah.
We have been selling ourselves short, right? So we have been selling ourselves short in a way that we think we're only our self identity, but we are spirit, and we're connected to God for sure. So the way I see things, and no matter what your belief is, right? This apply for, I think, the major of lots of people. Let's put it that way. Imagine God is the sun, right? And we're all children of God, right? So the spark of God creates your spirit, right? And after you've got clouds in the sky, right? You've got cloud, and after you've
Yeah.
got yourself. Mr. Whiskey, if you've got lots of cloud in your sky, even some people, they've got so many clouds in the sky, they say, the sun doesn't exist. I
Yeah.
never felt the sun. You see what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
felt it. So, but if you start to get rid of some limiting belief, right? And now finally you can feel the warmth of the sun, the nurturing aspect of the
Amen.
sun. Now you can be more connected to the sun, right? And if you are more connected to the sun, you've got more empowering belief, right? Remember that triangle? So if you've got more empowering belief, you've got more positive thought, right? You've got more supportive emotion. You've got more desirable behavior, and you've got more productive action, right? See, because the main problem, I think, does it make sense to you what I'm telling you?
It does. Yes.
And so there's one more thing that I want to say. The main problem, if you look at the stat, the main problem that we have with too much in our head. Why? Because our heart is shut down, either by trauma or because we have been told that we need to fix problem. So when you fix a problem, the only problem is like there's another problem, and another problem to be fixed, and that. And so our head is like always. That's why so many people tell me they want to get treated because they're overthinking, right? They
Yeah.
don't have peace and all that, right? So it's just too much in their head because the heart is shut down because all the energy is going to the head, right? And so what's happening, it's like when you get rid of limiting belief, your heart start to open like a flower, right? Your heart start to open, you feel more, and all that. So there's less energy going to the head and you're more at peace. So when you're more at peace, when you, even for problem solving, when you've got a problem, instead of being, you're more open-minded, right? When you're narrow-minded, what happened? You've got, oh, there's only one solution for my problem. When you're more open-minded, there's more solution coming, right? And so you've got more possibility. And now, since your heart is more open, now you can follow your heart. See, that's what I did when you said, like, it's almost a miracle, right? Because I follow my heart. I'm not saying that I've got my heart always has been open and things like that, but I know now
Right.
that I follow my heart. I really did because, like you say, the mind, the head, the thought. How are we going to do that, right? You say it's crazy. You have to be crazy to do it, right? You barely speak the language and that. But my heart told me just to go for it,
Right.
right? So, and we've got this expression, after the heart. And remember the book that the Chinese doctor recommend was the
Hmm.
hara, which is the belly, right? Which is about taking action. So when you've got your head, your heart, and your hara aligned, you're unstoppable. So it means when you're thinking, your feeling, your emotion, and your action are aligned, you're going to get whatever you want in life. But in order to achieve that, you want to make sure that it's an empowering belief. It means your belief are aligned with your thought, with your feeling or emotion, and with your action. Because lots of time we think like, you know what, I want to lose weight. So that's your thinking. And after the emotions go, oh, but it's hard, and I have to do that and all that. So you're not aligned, so you're not going to do it. It's not going to
Right.
last. You see what I mean? And so I call that resistance. Resistance for healing, resistance for transformation, resistance for growth, resistance for faith. So what we can do, we can treat with resistance, like I show you with like the woman with a neck problem and the computer. I just wanted to say that because I think it's important.
Yeah, it reminds me of I've shared it before on other people's shows. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." I mean, we've talked about how there are people out there who say, "I have no emotions. I am a cold, stoic person," but everything comes from the heart. And he said, it's interesting you talk about the mind and the heart being aligned. That's so true. It's actually the biggest issue we see in relationships is the mind and the heart aren't aligned. And yeah, even like you said with the physical fitness, we know that we need to eat healthy. We know that we need to work out, but we don't feel like it. We're lazy. Your
Because
mind
it's
knows
not
that we need to.
aligned.
Yeah, we know we
But
need to eat a salad, but our heart wants cotton candy or whatever it may
exactly.
be. So
But it's not only your heart and your head and your heart, it's your action.
yeah,
Because you can, let's pretend that, my head and my heart are aligned, right? If I don't
Mm.
take action, it's a fantasy. It's
Yeah.
something that I've got in my mind, That's why it's so important, because in my field, they all talk about uh, um, um, head and heart coherence, which means, it's a big word to mean align, but it's not enough. You need to take the action, because if you got procrastination, you may have good ideas in your mind, right? You may say, I want to start a business, I'm going to do that, I feel like I'm going to do it. But if your action don't follow, it's going to be a fantasy, it's going to be entertainment for your mind, because we are here to experience in the screen of life. Remember that analogy? In the screen of life, we need to experience it, because true experience is true knowledge, or true knowledge is experience, right? Until you manifest that, until you create that. And if you look at that, something very interesting, people, men, it's masculinity, right? So masculinity is
Hmm.
more your head. And that's why we want peace, right? That's what we want. That's a
Yeah.
masculine trait, right?
Yet to
So
find it,
this
but
is, yeah, this is peace, right? Okay. And obviously the feeling are more feminine, right? So you
mm,
follow your heart. And we have, as a man and as a woman, we all have a masculine part and feminine part, right?
yeah.
It's all in there, right? And so the combination, so listen to that, the combination of a masculine and feminine, it's in your belly. It's what creates things. Like if there's a belly, I'm sorry, there's a baby, I'm sorry, sir. If there's a baby, right, and the baby, the mother is holding that in her belly, you need to have a sperm and the ovum. So masculine and feminine together. That's how you create. So that's why it's so important. We have to not to forget the creation, right? Which is all what this is about. What you want, it's not, who cares about. I mean, it's not who cares, but again, if you stay in your head and your heart and you don't create, right? You don't take action. It just it's like a dream or something. A fantasy. It's a good word, I think, to describe that, right? And so, how do we know that, right? Peace of mind, follow your heart, and for the belly, since it's masculine and feminine, oh, Mr. Whiskey had the gut to do it and work on that on those nukes, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so that's masculine trait, right? Oh, Mr. Whiskey had the feeling that he had to do a podcast, right? That's a feminine trait, right? So you see, even in English expression, we've got that, and they all have to do their gut.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting?
It really is. And, we've had a great conversation, and I appreciate what you do. And we're going to have your website in the description below so everyone can look more into mind clearing, connect with you, and learn more about it if they're interested. I think it's very interesting, and I think it's something that people should definitely check out, especially if they've tried so many other things and are still
Exactly.
living with limiting beliefs or in pain. But before we end this episode, just because I don't think I've ever recorded with someone, from France, the way you are. I'd love for you to teach us something French that we don't have here in America. Like if you have a French saying that there's no English version of.
A French saying that, oh boy, uh, oh, gourmand.
Okay.
Gourmand is somebody that love food, and love food, but and wants always more of that. It's not gluttony, it's
Okay.
less than that, but he just love food, and you will eat just because you love food. I don't know if there's a word like this in English. I don't know if we can. That's what you were asking, right? If we can translate
Yeah.
that into English. I don't think I think I googled one time and he didn't show anything. And maybe I'm wrong, but I know that it's not used a lot in English, right? Gourmand. So gourmand again means somebody that just eats by pleasure, right? And
Mm.
just because, okay, typical gourmand for chocolate, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's interesting.
No,
So,
no
ladies and
problem. That's
gentlemen,
an interesting question.
yeah, yeah. Well, I thought of it because when I had the swearing therapist on my show, she was from Argentina, and I had her teach us some, sayings that they don't have here in the States. So I think it's interesting to learn a little something.
That's a
Hopefully,
good
everyone
question.
learned a lot more than just that from our great conversation. And like I said, link in the description below for them to check out mind clearing further and to learn it and to implement it into their lives, as well as, share it with others. We always say, share it with others. That's what my mission is, what your mission is, Dr. Allen, to
Yes,
help
sir.
other people. And so I hope that this gets spread and reaches the people it needs to reach. But thank you again for being on today's show.
Is there one more thing I want to say? There's always hope. There's
Yes, sir.
always a way. And also, you are so powerful.
Sailing through the ocean blue, nuclear reactors my crew, guiding the ship, the stars as our guide, through the waves we ride, jokes and laughter fill the air. On this voyage we have to share, working together, side by side, as one family we will abide. In the heart of the ship we reside, nuclear operators with pride, powering the vessel with every stride. Our mission, a source of great pride.